feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the shrimp tank. Want to put it all together, this is big thanks. Doing big things, we ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Roadie 2016. Like a phone to die, putting me in charge. I'm a general, from the front I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap, never.
Good afternoon, everybody in the Shrimp Tank family. This is the first episode of 2025, and we're here with Doug Mosley. He is the executive director of the Boca Raton Bowl, which is part of the ESPN family, which is part of the Walt Disney family as well. One of my wife's favorite locations to visit, of course, with my two young kids. So every single week we come to you with the best and brightest entrepreneurs from South Florida. Always find the do's and don'ts. We do this in collaboration with the Florida Atlantic University, their FAU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Roland Kidwell. How are you doing today, Roland?
I'm doing great, Jason. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. So anything new in business that we should know? What do you see on the horizon for 2025 in the business world?
Oh, my goodness. Well, we have changes in the administration, of course, and we're going to have some very interesting elements there. And since I don't want to get into politics, I'll just leave it there. But there will be some definite changes, maybe some bright spots, maybe some not so bright spots. So we'll have to see that. But I think there are going to be some quite significant things happening. They're going to impact small business and entrepreneurs, whether it's tax cuts, extension of tax cuts, lessening of regulations, what have you. So there's going to be a lot going on.
I agree.
Hard to predict.
As an entrepreneur myself, it's going to be an interesting Q1. You have TikTok potentially going away in a week or so, right? Or as of now, it's gone, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs out there leverage TikTok, right? It's the most popular platform currently, and more people are going to shift to a new platform or double down on the current platforms they're using, like Instagram and LinkedIn as an example. So I'm really interested to see what happens Q1. But let's get into our guest today, Doug. I guess to kick things off, tell our audience a little bit about the Boca Raton Bowl. Everyone watching sees the football, of course.
Yep.
Looks great, but tell us what it's all about.
Well, we've been around for 11 years now. We're, when I first got to town, folks really didn't know much about what we were doing. I'd get phone calls from people to say, "Where's your bowling alley?" And so I had to kind of say, well,
Yeah.
We'll be in FAU Stadium. We're only open one night of the year over there with our college football bowl game, but we are one of the 42 college football bowl games sanctioned by the NCAA postseason college football. We just, as you mentioned, we just had our 11th year. James Madison, in their first year of full eligibility to be a bowl team,
Yep.
came in and defeated Western Kentucky, who'd been in our game 3 times before. So it's been, when I got here, there was nothing. They just pointed me to Boca Raton and said, "Go start a bowl game for us."
And
So you were the startup guy
Exactly.
of the Boca Raton Bowl.
Exactly.
So
That's why I say it's kind of the entrepreneur of it, even though I work for a giant company.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. This bowl game, it's before Christmas this year. Usually it is this year. Usually
Every year. Yeah.
And how has the college playoff system impacted bowl games in general, and specifically this one, in terms of you have all these extra games ahead of the bowl games, and some of the teams that may be in the bowl games are not in the bowl games anymore because they're in the playoffs. So how has it impacted the Boca Raton Bowl?
Well, if you'd asked me that question back in November, I would have been a little worried. I was glad that we were in a position before the playoffs started. Matter of fact, I even described our date of December 18th as a gateway to the playoff. And I wasn't sure how non-playoff games would do. And that was really important because ESPN, ABC, we do almost all the bowl games. I think there's only 3 that we don't do. And when I got my rating back for our game, we were up 16% from last year's game. When I saw what the other games were doing, even after the playoff, I was wrong. It has heightened viewership. We've had greater viewership than we've had in almost a decade to date over all the bowl games that ESPN and ABC air.
Well, at the same time, how has attendance grown or not over the years? I know COVID set it back, but over the years since you started, how has that changed or stayed stable?
Well, we've always had a challenge in that our agreement with the city and the county, we have to be before Christmas because let's face it, If you had to get hotel rooms for 2 entire football traveling squads and their fans and everything after Christmas, it's almost impossible down here. We have a close partnership with the Orange Bowl. I know they even have problems getting enough hotel rooms. So where we were before Christmas, it allowed us to have that perspective going into it. I think that it washed out well for us. I don't know how much farther I want to go or forward to the playoffs, because what we run into is kids are still in school. Families can't travel as much. That's what we found out this year on the 18th. So it was good and bad to it. So attendance is always going to be a challenge for early season games. What we find is the games that come after Christmas, actually, they'll have more travel. There's more of a traveling opportunity because fans have more of an opportunity to plan. These teams found out they were coming to our game 10 days later. They were playing the game.
That's always rough to make those quick arrangements, isn't it?
We try and do all we can. We want to fill up every seat, but honestly, that most important number to us is that TV viewing, the ratings.
Okay, so let's dive into that a tad more, right? The Shrimp Tank's all about understanding behind the scenes of the business, right? We have the FAU students sitting in today, and this all sounds great, but day in and day out, you do not just, hang out and watch football and drink a beer and hang out with other people who are your sponsors, right? No, it does not work like that. So let's talk about what goes on throughout the year. And you mentioned 16%. You're proud of that number?
Yep.
Compared to the other bowls, and tell us what it really means to run this business, right? Where does it start? Like, it's January 1st. What do you have to do up until December 18th?
Well, it's really, it kind of all kicks off on championship weekend for college football. And this year that was on December 8th. When we get those teams all sort out, and, usually the conference champions will have their choice of where they want to go. And generally the conferences we work with, which is the group of 5 conferences, which is Conference USA, where FAU used to play, the American Athletic Conference, where they currently play, the Sun Belt, where they were quite a while ago, and then also the Mountain West and the MAC, which is up in the upper Midwest. So as we work with those conferences, as we put these games together, this year JMU, the way they came in, they played in their championship game, Western Kentucky played their championship game and then made their choice after the game that they wanted to come here. So that made for that quick turnaround. Hurts us on the travel side, but still Western Kentucky's a known entity out there. James Madison, even though they're just getting through their change from FCS, obviously their success there, they were a known entity.
So let's jump into the money side of things.
Okay.
Though, right? Because, you have to make money at the end of the day, or ESPN is going to shut the bowl down. Right. So explain to everybody listening, right, how you kept your job for 11 years, right? It was really a startup. You had to come into this city and figure out opportunities, which I'm sure meant, a lot of lunches, a lot of dinners, a lot of handshaking, and a lot of networking, right? So explain to the FAU students sitting in what that really entails, right? And how ESPN holds you accountable for hitting certain goals each and every year. And I'm sure those goals keep growing and growing.
And those goals really come from our schools, our schools and our conference partners. Like I say, with the 2 teams we had this year, they chose to come here because they knew of the experience here. We spend all year trying to set up the best possible experience that we can because we want compelling games. Compelling games turn into great ratings. Okay. Great ratings turn into great ad revenue.
So I guess what Jason's getting at, what are you doing now? What are you doing like for the first 10 months of the year? So prepare.
Yeah. And right now, because we didn't have a title sponsor this past year, it was only our second year in 11 that we didn't. So we're out there actively chasing title sponsors right now. We're actively putting together packages for them and that kind of thing. Having that title sponsor is kind of like making sure that locally you're going to be okay financially. The big part of it is making sure you've got a great TV rating. That's the real emphasis here. Putting together a game that's compelling, making sure you've got a great history of great games. Our game is known for a lot of offense. Teams tend to come down here, from the north. They get down here in the beautiful weather and everything. FAU Stadium's got a great playing surface, and it makes for a great game, an exciting game. So the game we had this year rated really well for its time period. Even more important, we're able to deliver an audience to the game that followed us that was in prime time. So ESPN won the night that night with sports programming. That's what's really important. The things we do locally to set up the game, with our local sponsors, we'll sell hospitality. We'll sell visibility. That all goes to making the local money line, palatable. And but it's
So
the TV.
let's use a real example.
Mhm.
I'm a business owner,
Mhm.
right? I'm the founder of the Owl app, right? I also run a financial service company. Sell me. What does this mean? You're saying to get involved. So everybody listening could completely understand when you say like getting involved, what this means. So tell me, what am I going to get? You know, if I have a partnership with your brand.
What would you say to me if I told you I could give you great access in a casual setting to 1,200 of Boca's business leaders?
I would say we'll use one of my businesses as an example. Let's just financial service a little easier to understand than my app Owl, right? Of course, like financial advisors love working with business owners. Business owners are known to have more money coming in and a higher net worth, as simple as that. And they have more problems. They need more insurance products. And they're the best group to work with in our industry. So of course I'd be like, yeah, I would love the opportunity because those are very hard to reach professionals.
And that's what we sell locally is when they, we always say, are you looking for visibility? Or are you looking for hospitality?
Yep.
And that's just simply to set up the approach. But then when they find out, all right, now if I just buy visibility, can I be involved in these other things, these hospitality things? That's why I say we have our VIP party right before the game, an exclusive party. People want to be in there. 1,200 people in the business community. It's an opportunity to network in an environment where you probably are more casual. You're liable to carry on a conversation, you're liable to meet somebody.
So I will say though, most of the things that I look at when doing partnerships is I don't want a one-off thing, right? One-offs kind of tend not to do the best because you're like, I'm going to do all this work and then I got to wait a whole other year. I want something throughout the year, and you guys do a lot of that. I think there is a misunderstanding. Often people are like, oh, it's just one game, but it's not the case at all.
And
right?
that's right, because that network can continue through. We have in the fall, we'll do our Great Chef's Tailgate Showcase where we'll bring in a lot of restaurants. Again, it's a casual setting, but the business community is most of the people that's getting our hospitality. So it's an opportunity to interact with them in that
so as a
casual
customer,
way.
because I see your brand all over the place all the time. And I noticed that it's not just about the day, right?
No.
It's throughout the year. And then a lot of our past guests of the Shrimp Tank have actually mentioned it, like, hey, are you going to the Boca Bowl? And they say that quite often. And when I first got down here from New York 6-7 years ago, I was like, what are they talking about? The Boca Bowl? I was like, but then it kind of made more sense to me. I'm like, this isn't just about a one-day event. It's leading up to the event. All these different things going on, and these local brands could collaborate, and it builds a sense of community. Can you speak to community?
Sure. And let me just say, like, we've got our executive committee, which is pretty much C-suite kind of folks.
Yeah.
And we keep that fairly exclusive. And I get people saying, man, how do I get on that executive committee? Sometimes the exclusivity part of it is the most valuable piece to it, just like getting into the VIP party and that.
Of course.
But, there's more to our community than just that. We do a big outreach to families with kids and that, trying to get them here on campus. That's part of our partnership with FAU that we feel strongly about, is how can we bring people to this campus who've never been here before, who really all they know about FAU is they just kind of see it as they're going up and down 95. So we try and bring in these different groups. We have a charitable ticketing arm that we're able to. We brought in, 8 busloads out of the Glades. A lot of those kids had never, ever seen this campus before, let alone that stadium. So we'll do things like that. We've got our community captains, which is kind of a worker bee group that we involve them. I always said, even though essentially this game is owned by the Walt Disney Company, I want to promote local ownership in our community. I want people to feel like they own a part of this game. They take pride in this game.
So I guess the bottom line, you have the big, what is it called? The Bad Boy Mower Ball and the Mayo Ball and the Tax Slayer Ball. How much would Jason have to shell out to call it the Owl App Bowl?
Yeah,
let's cut to the chase.
We might change it to the Nest.
Can I get that piece of paper? We'll write out a contract on the back of it
here.
Here
You go.
Bowl games typically you can get in on the bottom end of some bowl games. There you go.
As a trade.
Is that what we're getting paid shrimp, right?
Of course.
The bottom end, you're going to see games available for like around 400,000 up. Ours sits right there in that 650 range. Something like the Orange Bowl, obviously that's getting into an 8-figure thing.
Yeah, I think he couldn't do that one.
No.
It's just, you got to just change your words. Yet you add the word yet.
Yet.
But one day when TikTok goes down and then more people leverage apps like Owl to build relationships 101, you never know, Roland.
And you're still working.
That company could be 100 million of revenue before you know it. And
This
my
is
name,
true.
my name may be on the top of that stadium.
There you go.
Oh, I thought they had something for that already. Anyway, so, they had another name. There's a new name.
You know, and I just called
The
it
title
FAU
sponsor,
Stadium.
the
It's
title
actually
sponsor.
Flagler Credit Union.
Flagler Credit
Station.
Union. There you go. That's right.
Yep.
That's
As a matter of fact, that logo was on the field for the first time during our game.
I like that
So,
Flagler connection. That's nice.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. So the idea though is to lock in perhaps a sponsor, a naming sponsor over a period of time.
Mhm.
And for the last couple of years, we haven't had one, right?
Just
The
this
Cherry
past
Bundy
year.
Bowl, was that what it was?
We had Cherry Bundy at one point.
Okay.
It really had a great relationship with them. Of course, being a consumer product and the things that they could do. And then Roof Claim followed them.
Okay.
Now, the similarity between those two, plus the previous sponsor we had, which was Marmot, of all things, Marmot, a ski wear company, on a bowl game with Boca Raton. But they're part of Jarden, of course, which is local here.
Mhm.
But Sheriff Bundy was great to work with. They understood that, just like what Roof Claim did, they were an emerging brand. When they came to us, their market share was small. They had a great product, tart cherry juice, had great benefits to athletic teams and that. A lot of the NFL teams use their product, but they weren't really out there in front of the consumer. Their shelf space in Publix was the bottom shelf, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
By the time they finished up the 4 years with us, they had over a 20% market share. It was easier for them not only just to get their facing raised on the shelf, but to get multiple facings for their product because customers were asking.
Mhm. What do you think is the biggest challenge that you have in the bowl game? What has set up the most difficulty for you to overcome, and then how did you overcome it?
So right now, the big challenge right now, and is really what faces college football, even college athletics overall, is the uncertainty that we're in with the transfer portal and also where we're going with NIL. And believe me, I have so many people say, oh my goodness, college football, they're just ruining it. What are we going to do? It's going to go away. And I'm like, look, there's always been change. It's always been there in front of college athletics. At one point, college football almost got shut down. Teddy Roosevelt saved it. And essentially, he pushed through the stuff that created the NCAA. So there's always change. Right now, we're trying to figure that piece out. You know, I always say change is going to come into a system whether you like it or not. How you go from change being introduced to the system to equilibrium, that might take some time. And that's where we are right now with NIL and transfer portal.
So this colleges and universities have a lot of money trying to figure out how that's going to impact those that don't, I guess, right?
Well, in particular, I mean, you look at a school like FAU and how do they line up on that money spectrum against a University of Florida or even Florida State? I mean, you know, Florida State, it's funny to see people talking about them and their coach situation say, well, they don't have a lot of money. It's like, try being some of these other schools like an FAU or a James Madison or Western Kentucky. But that, you know, that spectrum has always been there. And I hear people saying, well, we need to create a division for the kind of like the have-nots and the haves. Well, we've had that in the past and everybody keeps migrating to the haves. So that's, you know, that's the challenge right now. Where is college football and college athletics really as a whole? Where is this going to reach that equilibrium as we go through this? You know, it's not like we just had one change thrust upon us with transfer portal. We had NIL too. And this came through the court system. So it was stuff that it wasn't like they could delay it. Wasn't like they could try and think it over and figure out, okay, how are we going to tackle this? They're having to deal with it right now. Brian White, I'm going to tell you, the athletic director here spends, I guarantee you, every single day working on both those issues.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the challenge that we've all got to, we've got to figure out where it's going to lie to where we can all kind of go forward with the system. We'll go forward as we are right now. We'll have the opt-outs. We'll have the kids talk about, well, I didn't get my NIL money, so I'm not going to play. You know, that happened at a couple of schools. And we'll see how that sorts out. I really think that we're probably in for 5 to 8 years of this.
And, you know, as an academic, I worry about some of these students. I don't know how many are doing it, but it seems like they're on a different team every year, which means they're going to a different university every year, which means what does that mean for the education?
Yep.
Not all of them, very few of them are going to get to the pros.
Yep.
So, I mean, that issue, I think, is something that's in the background.
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, I spent 27 years on campus before I went to work for ESPN. I have a great appreciation for the academic side of what we were doing. I mean, let's face it. that's got to be the first part of your mission when you're working on campus. So to see people that come out and say, well, my freshman year, I'm going to go to USC, and my sophomore year, I want to go to UNC, North Carolina, and my junior year, I want to go here. I'm like, don't you realize you're not accumulating progress towards a degree? You're just starting all over every year. So it's kind of this short-sightedness. They're losing the ability to get that college degree, to come out of this. Granted, they came here to play football or basketball or tennis or golf, but the college degree has to be the first goal.
I agree with that.
Can we touch on just working with universities in general, right? Me as a business owner, I know that whenever I've knocked on the door of other universities, you get a lot of red tape, right? And an example would be like the brand sitting here right now is Celsius, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this is a campus that is a co-campus,
Yep.
right? And they are distributed by Pepsi, right? So we could partner with them because we're not exactly handing out beverages, right? They're not buying Celsius in the studio. So we're able to do a partnership with them. But in your case, like you have to be careful. There's a lot of red tape, and a lot of entrepreneurs, figure out a solution to a problem, which they're taught. And then eventually they go down and try to work with universities, and they fail because the timeline is so long and there's so much red tape they didn't see coming. And you spent, 27 years, you said, on campuses, right? And you've learned a lot about, the regulations and the rules and how to proceed. So can you just speak to that and speak to other entrepreneurs, I guess, generally is where I'm going with this, where, if you were in their shoes and their startup brand and they're trying to work with universities, what should their expectations be? And how
the first thing is you have to understand that it's not going to be an overnight thing. Even if you have the perfect product, they have to have it now and everything. Just going through the PO process sometimes, and the vendor, the purchasing on-campus purchasing process could be a little daunting. And at one point in my career, I worked in the state of Louisiana, which, has its reputation for the corruption and everything. And I used to always say this state used to be so corrupt that with their regulations on universities, they went so far this way that it was like jumping through 9 hoops instead of 1. But you have to have that understanding of, it's like any business. Government's the same way. Have a ton of it. And I do a lot of work with government.
Government's even worse.
Yeah.
Their websites are from like 1985, most of these sites. It's crazy.
If you understand their process, they will appreciate that so much better. If you understand or help them to understand what hurdles are coming up, or to anticipate, like, hey, I know that we're going to need to get, like in government, I know that I got to get this kind of approval.
Because there's people on the other side. That's important, because you're saying you got to understand the process because there's people on the other side.
Well, it's got to go between.
And they're frustrated, just like you're frustrated. And they're like, yeah, we know it's a pain in the butt, but it's the way it is. So it brings.
If you got to go through a county commission, those happen not every day. So you've got to make sure you work that timing into that.
Well, I used to live in Louisiana. So where did you work there?
Monroe.
Oh, at Northeast.
ULM. Yeah, the old Northeast.
Monroe. Yeah, right. It was Monroe back in the day.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. Well, Louisiana, the difference between Louisiana and New York. Louisiana is corrupt. New York is more corrupt, but they're not proud of it. Anyway, just had to throw that out there. So in the community, this is a question from one of our students here who's attending today. What are some of the things that you think the Boca Raton Bowl has impacted in terms of community sports, maybe in high school sports or other kinds of sports? What's been the impact?
Well, first of all, I promise I did not plant that question because it's one of the things I'm most proud of. Every team that's played in our bowl game has recruited at least one kid from Palm Beach County or Broward County or Martin County. We kind of feel like that's our core. So it's given new opportunities for high school student athletes. It's not just the local schools looking at them. They're able to go all kinds of different places. Even when BYU came in, of course, the Mormon Church is the biggest landowner in the state, but still BYU came in, they played in the COVID year, but they were still able to identify kids down here that they wanted to bring back to Utah with them. So that's a proud point right there. The next thing is how we try and work with the local high schools. We use local high schools for our practice fields. So we get the teams out there. We encourage them to interact with the high school, have the students come out, see what's going on. We want them to have that introduction of sorts. James Madison's a great school. So when they were here, we were trying to say, hey, everybody, go check out James Madison.
Excellent.
Okay, well, this is the hour rolling where we're going to invite students to come on down. In 2025, students are going to join us live on the show. We set up a microphone for them to my left,
And one's
and
coming down now.
we
Look.
got one coming down. It's like the Price is Right days. So,
Yeah, come on down.
Doug, we're going to have a couple students
Oh.
ask you some questions. Here they come.
All right.
So earlier, Doug, you were discussing the value for sponsor partners, which was getting in front of local business leaders as one
Mhm.
benefit. And so something I was thinking about was that for businesses considering becoming a sponsor, they also have lots of other advertising options, such as Facebook advertising, which gives them a lot of control and like targeting options. So my first question is, which businesses or industries would you say have the most benefit to gain from partnering with the Boca Raton Bowl? And then the second question is, are there potential ideas for new experiences or offers for future sponsors and advertisers to engage viewers and attendees?
Let me answer the second one first. You might have to remind me of the first one after I
Okay.
give you this answer. Is you need to be the kind of business that is flexible enough that when somebody tells you, hey, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do. And I'll just give an example. Our relationship with Habitat, we had some different sponsors coming to us, and they were doing the hospitality visibility thing, but they said, can you help us with doing maybe some community outreach type stuff? Well, just so happened I was on the board for Habitat here. We were able to set up a build day, and we had teams come out. The old Tire Kingdom, now Mav Tire, they came out every year, would bring a bunch of their employees. They wanted to be involved in that. So, and we've had others do it as well. But the thing of it is, you just got to be flexible enough. And it's also your networking in the community. I mean, as soon as they asked for that, I thought, Habitat, there's the opportunity right there. We also partner with the YMCA, and we've been able to do some things with them. So you got to have the flexibility to react to the needs or the wants of your sponsors. But probably even more important than that, you got to make sure you got that line of communication with them to where they're telling you what their wants and needs are. If you're just taking their check, giving them a sign on the side of the scoreboard, or giving them a video on the video board, and that's all you're doing with your sponsors, you're really not doing them a great service. And let's see, your first question again.
Oh, just to follow up comment on what you're saying so I understand correctly. So because of your network in the local community, you're able to help sponsors kind of spread their roots throughout the community, not just being a name on a stadium.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
And so the first question was, are there certain businesses or industries that benefit more so than others?
Thank you.
Yeah.
On the title sponsor level, it's almost always emerging brands now.
Mhm.
To see the legacy brands that used to be on all the bowl games, is the ups and downs, the normal ups and downs of your economy. So many of them, they had to pull that. I always say, I'm fine with an affinity buy from a sponsor, but I really want to make sure it's something that works for them. So it's generally somebody that has an interest in sports that's going to wants this kind of a setting. They know their customers like to come to this. Again, I'll go back to Tire Kingdom. We used to give them, I think, about 400 tickets a year that they would distribute to customers. Tire Kingdom knew their customers like college football. So there's a bit of that. But then there's also just the whole, that's where the whole social thing, and able to do the exclusivity, and people want to buy into that exclusivity. You kind of got to hold those premiums at a special level to retain their value. But, always be flexible, always be open to helping your sponsors. If there's a new need, find a way you can fill it.
Awesome.
So before you sit down, tell us your name.
Oh, my name's Ahmad.
Thanks, Ahmad.
Thank you, Ahmad.
Great questions.
Great question. Okay, we have two more students that are going to ask you some questions.
Tell us your name before you start.
My name is Hannah, and my first question kind of piggybacks off his a little bit. I was going to ask, how do you use your connections, either from ESPN or wherever else, to make the Boca Raton Bowl successful?
Well, what we do is we'll ask for some personalities to come down every now and then. We have an event that we do every fall. We call it Women Changing the Game. And it's a women's only event most years. Now, last year was with the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Title IX. We did that 2 years ago. Last year we did mentorship, and we invited people to bring their mentor. So we had a lot of guys brought along with that. But we do this typically women's only event every year. We have some ESPN personalities come down. We had the vice president in charge of programming come down. Let's see, that was during the Title IX celebration. Bonnie Bernstein came down this year. She's obviously been an on-air personality for ESPN and ABC in the past. So we use a lot of that. You know, I talked about these exclusivities. So our executive committee, like I described them, kind of a C-suite people, when we bring them together, always want to try and bring down one of our vice presidents who's able to kind of share some things with them. You know, that's a hard group to reach all the time or to kind of keep their attention. One thing I've always noticed, if I can put like my big boss in front of them, the room gets quiet as they hear them start to talk about where this is going, you know, is strategically within ESPN, what our vision for this is. You know, we've been telling them college, you know, the conference realignment is not over. We were telling them that a couple of years ago after that first big shift to conference realignment. So when they get that kind of information, that kind of vision, that just even makes more value for them.
Who is your big boss?
So it was Pete Durzis. He just retired.
And he was the head of ESPN, or
he was the head of the events. And then he was the vice president for all college sports programming for ESPN.
How much of a, I'm just going to jump in, how much of a free reign do you have to do your thing? I mean, how much does corporate, I don't know, get involved?
So the only time they get involved is when I forget something. So no,
when he makes mistakes.
Exactly. I got to call Nate. Hey, you forgot this. But generally, I mean, that's why I liked when I first started, you know, when I heard from y'all and I looked at what you do and everything, the entrepreneurial part of it. I'm like, even though I work for a giant corporation, there's only two of us down here. And like when they brought me in here, it was just me to start it. And they said, start a bowl game for us. Now they gave me some help here and there. Obviously they all my back end stuff is there, you know, my accounting, my payroll, HR, all that's handled out of Bristol or out of Glendale where Disney's based. But a lot of it is go do it.
Well, how did they pick you to start a bowl game?
So they knew me. I had worked with them, you know, off and on through the years. You know, obviously on a college campus, we deal with ESPN a lot. Fox some, but ESPN probably has the bulk of college sports programming. So they knew me. They had known me all the way back to, you know, when I was working down here, when I was working in Atlanta. And it just was one of those phone calls. They were looking for somebody that knew the area. I knew the area. I'd been down here before. I'd never lived here. And they said, what do you think about moving to Boca Raton and starting a bowl game?
Did you feel like you had any entrepreneurial background when you started into this? I mean, did you feel like you had started a business or started something similar that gave you those skills? Yeah,
early on in my career, I'd done some stuff like that before I went, you know, just full on into education, or higher ed, I should say. So, you know, I had at least that kind of experience, that kind of viewpoint that I wasn't intimidated when I came to town. I mean, it was like, okay, you got to get it done. How are you going to do it? Figure it out yourself. Now, I knew where I had resources down here that I could reach out to, but it wasn't like I had, you know, they didn't hand me a manual, say, this is how you do it. They said, go do it.
And then my second question, it may be a little difficult to answer because I know you were talking about how sports and the bowl games and everything is changing in general, but where do you expect to be in those 5 to 8 years? You said that, like, how much do you want to grow? Like, where do you expect to grow? And
so, and Hannah, thanks for your questions, by the way. I want to be in a position where we're putting together the best matchup possible that's going to fill that stadium. Now, right now, like I've talked about, you know, we're mainly like group of 5 versus group of 5. We have pulled in, like, you know, like I said, BYU wasn't in the Big 12 at the time, but they are now. Some of the other schools we've worked with are in the Big 12 now. SMU came down, played in our game. They were in the college football playoff this year. I would anticipate that we'll still be doing this game, but we will have more high-profile teams coming into it. College football teams, they want their postseason to be in Florida. My boss told me this morning, he said, I could put 30 teams in your game, no problem, because this is where they want to be. Now, why do they want to be here? Well, first of all, why are we here? It's beautiful, right? We love it here, right? But the other half of it is this is a great place for recruiting. There are a lot of great college or high school football players here who have that talent to go on and play in college. So the teams want to be here to be in front of those people. They also want to be here because they probably recruited down here before. So this is an opportunity. Let's say they're in the MAC and they hardly ever play a game down here. Now they can come down. The kids can play in front of their parents and family in that. So we'll continue to push for great matchups. We'll continue to try and get, more ranked teams. We've had a few ranked teams during our time. We've had conference champions come play in our game, but I would anticipate that we're going to be probably shooting just about as high as we can for teams that will play before Christmas. The teams that won't typically play before Christmas is Big Ten, SEC. SEC will make an exception every now and then, though.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
questions.
Yeah, excellent.
And also business friendly, of course.
Yeah.
Right. Lower taxes down here.
And
a
we're
lot of-
waiting for
lot more
Florida
people wanna
Atlantic
do
to get
business.
back into this game. So, okay.
Okay, we have our last question of the day.
All right.
What's your
Doug,
name?
you talk about, Jenna.
Jenna, thank you.
Doug, you talk about bringing in local businesses and other companies. What efforts are you making to bring in these businesses in a marketing perspective? Because I'm a marketing student, just
Yeah.
wanna ask a marketing question.
So first of all, we'll make sure that we're well defined. Nobody's wondering where the bowling alley is anymore when they talk about Boca Raton Bowl. So that was probably job one, to make sure people know who we are. And, it's just like you had said, people are saying it to you. Hey, you going to the Boca Bowl? Are you going to do this? Are you going to go to the Great Chef's Tailgate Showcase tonight? My ophthalmologist is constantly, it's like, man, I hear about that tailgate event. I got to get to it someday. So you're trying to put together, and that's why it's so important in this community. We have to do events outside of just that week in December when we have a bowl week. We have to be visible, and we've got to do good events. We can't be kind of slipshod. We can't kind of do them in a haphazard way. We have to do them well. So people know when they're going to come to an event with us, they know what to expect. They know what they're going to get out of it. And particularly with a sponsor, you want them. I don't want any surprises for a sponsor. When they walk into one of our events, I want them to know ABC. This is what to expect. This is what you have. Here's where your signage is.
Yeah.
Here's where your location is.
Okay. And then I have one more question. As an FAU student, what efforts are you making to involve FAU students in the Boca Raton Bowl, whether it's internship opportunities or other things?
Well, let me tell you, right across the street here is a guy who is one of my great friends, Dan Carnley over there, and that's a sports management MBA program. We have taken, just this year, we had students from the sports management MBA program. I believe highly, and I'm, I was good friends with Dr. Reardon, and he was just epic in my eyes. And what they built over there, globally famous, not just in the nation. This thing is globally ranked. Every student we get there is well prepared. There's, it's not like you're having to coach them up or something like that just to get them to bare minimum. They come in and they can deliver right off the top. We also do internships for kids seeking academic credit. I always tell them, I don't want them to, they'll say, well, I just want to come volunteer in your office. I'm like, I really don't want to take advantage of you by making you work for nothing. Mm-hmm. So please do it for academic credit. So we've done it. Now, the positions we have in the fall that are paid positions that we get the students from the sports management MBA program. And in the summertime, we do a lot of folks trying to get that professional internship experience.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the questions, Jenna.
Can you speak to that for a moment? Because we haven't discussed it on the Shrimp Tank in a while. Non-paid internships, paid internships, and then ones for credit. Because often I find people jump for the money, but
Yep.
often, it's short-sighted, and often you could do one, like you're saying, for credit, and then you have no pressure on your side. You're like, yeah, they could come in and you just want them to learn. And I've always found, like, sometimes, it's difficult, running an internship program when you have people for like 3 months, but you want them to really learn so much. But when there's money involved, that changes. Like, oh, well, I kind of need things scanned. I kind of need some calls. You understand where I'm going with this. So
Sure.
Can you speak to that for a moment and what you would advise? Because there's a lot of students here that, of course, would love that knowledge.
So, I'm a big believer in these sports management programs right now. They didn't have them when I came through. We kind of had to do our own. At least that's why I told my folks I took all those PE classes in college. But so now we've got those programs, and now they're seeing real curriculum they're seeing what the industry is really like. And it's not just, a textbook that's written from 30,000 feet. So I want to make sure that they have hands-on experience, because if you go through and just get the degree and you've never worked an event, you've never been around a team, anything like that, you're still going to be a little bit behind. So it's been my belief, and I'm very open with them. I'm like, anybody that wants to, I'll take them, just about anybody, if they'll come down and agree, to decorum in that. But in the summertime, we don't have budget for it. And that's when most people are looking to pick up those, they're back home from school and they're looking to pick up some credit hours. So I'm like, we'll do it. I don't have budget to pay them money, but we'll do it for them, but they have to get credit for it. I don't want them to just come in and just be hanging out for no money or no credit. In the fall, though, we do have 3 paid positions, temp positions. It's kind of funny. 2 of those come through our partnership with the Orange Bowl. So they actually get hired by the Orange Bowl and assigned back to us. They work with us every day until our game's over, and then they go work the Orange Bowl. So one of my guys we had this year, I just heard back from, and he was, and see, we put our people in positions. I tell them, we're going to do our best to educate you to the point when it comes December, you're making decisions. And so one of my guys down there said, yeah, they don't really know what to do with us here. We're kind of like rearranging chairs and emptying trash cans. He said it was a lot more fun working with the Boca Bowl.
Yeah. Nice. Roland, what's your opinion?
Well, you want to have a meaningful internship experience, and for credit, you really have to be doing some things related to your degree, right? You can't be just filing and rearranging chairs and those kinds of things. And with the sport management program, there is an internship requirement. The tough thing with the undergrad internship is to convince the students that it is beneficial to them for their career to take the internship, unpaid or not. But I can tell you it's more successful if you have a way to provide a paid internship and credit. So if you can do both of those things, it's much more marketable to the undergraduate student who'll be giving up a server job or something like this to do it. With the graduate student, they need that as part of their program. And so you're going to see that a lot more connection and interest, and it's going to be in their field. And it's very important for that. So I applaud you for doing so much with this award-winning sport management program. It's one of the crown jewels, I think, of the Florida Atlantic.
Yep. It's fantastic. And like I say, the students we see out of that program are so well prepared. I can't say enough good things about it.
Okay. My last question of the day is going to be about alumni, right? How do you get more alumni involved with the Boca Bowl in general?
You mean alumni of the schools that are playing?
Yeah. Like the FU alumni, you have so many people. I went to University of Delaware. Right. And
you're a blue hen.
I get a magazine in the mail, and I'm always more aligned with my university. I want to do business with my university. Right. There's not many blue hens down here in South Florida, but I want to go to more local meetups. I want to put more money towards the organizations that are, more of a community around my alumni.
Yep.
So can you just speak to just the Boca Bowl? Like, do you what is the plan to just get more alumni involved, because it's a better sense of community overall? And there's a lot of stats on that, of course.
So Jenna, I'm going to need your marketing help. Okay. We've got a team coming. We just named JMU. It's going to be the first time they've ever now they've played in a bowl game before, but it was a last minute thing because we didn't have enough teams. This is the first time they've ever been able to plan a bowl trip. So I want you to put up a page on our website, the splash page that comes up. Because if you can imagine, my web traffic spends 350 days here, and then suddenly it's up here.
Spikes.
And who is that? It's the alums. It's the fans in that. So I'm going to get somebody like Jenna that I'm going to say, work on the splash page for me. Let's make sure we've got hotel information. I want to make it so easy for them to come down here to experience this, because at the end of the day, my number one competition, the absolute number one reason why people don't come to the game is ESPN, because they make it so easy to sit at home and watch it on your couch with your own beer, your own popcorn and that. So I want to do everything I can. I tell people, I'm not really selling football. I'm selling sunshine and beaches and palm trees. If you look at the front page on my my website, it's a beach with the water coming in, a little bit of the waves coming in. So I'm going to say to Jenna, I want you to sell this hard. I want you to tell them, let's compare the weather today in Boca Raton to the weather in Bowling Green, Kentucky, okay, where Western Kentucky is located. I want to put the full court press. I get a very short window with them. I could market to them all the other 11 months, but so much of it's just going to pass them by. They're not really interested. But as soon as they know that they're coming to play in the Boca Raton Bowl, suddenly They're very interested in us. So I want to make sure we're doing everything we can. I'm working with the schools to force that information out to them. I'm like trying to get the schools, through their season ticket holders generally, but also through their alumni association. Here's what it takes to come down here. We're going to have a big party for them out here on the front lawn. We're going to do all these things to make it easy. We want to entice them to come down here instead of staying home watching on the TV. So Jenny, you ready to go to work? All right.
She's in.
10 days
of
of
that internship opportunity.
10 days of 18-hour days.
Yes,
Work,
you're
it seems
exactly
like,
right.
Well, we'd love to continue this conversation for another hour. I know me and Roland always enjoy them, but I think it's time that Roland
Just a
tells
reminder
us,
real quick. Yes.
Yeah, Roland shares what's going on with FAU before we head out for today's
Okay, I
episode.
wasn't sure if I was going to get onto that script yet. I'm kind of new to this, right? And new format. So cool. Anyway, so we do have the Entrepreneurship Boot Camp starting up January 22nd. Be sure to Google the Adams Center and you'll find information for that. Or there's a QR code if you want to zoom in here to find that. If you're a veteran, we have the Veterans Entrepreneurship Program starting out, the spring cohort. That is going to start actually on January 23rd as well. Another QR code is there, but also you can go to the Adams Center webpage and get that information. And I wanted to let everyone know, and particularly these marketing students who might want to change their majors, February 4th is Management Programs Week. We're going to be highlighting international business, entrepreneurship, leadership, elements of our outstanding management programs department, where you can get a great job once you get through it and learn all about leadership, entrepreneurship, international business, and healthcare administration.
Awesome. Always amazing things going on at this university. Doug, thank you for joining us here on the Shrimp Tank today. Everyone tuning in, we'll be back next Wednesday right at 1 o'clock. Take care.